Good morning, Year 5, or afternoon, depending on when you're watching this. So, let me see where we got up to. So, the taxi man, they just got the taxi on the way to Buckingham Palace. Tom clapped his hands over his mouth and didn't say anything else. But the taxi man just laughed and said, "Well, when you see her, the Queen, say hi from me." I nodded and the taxi man laughed again. After a few minutes, the taxi came to a stop in the traffic. Taxi man looked at his watch. They'll be doing the changing of the guards soon. You'll have to walk from here, I'm afraid. He turned around to look at us and pointing to his right. See those arches there? Just walk under them and keep going straight down the big red road. Okay? The palace is right at the end, past the water fountain. Tom nodded and took out the exact money it said on the meter. The taxi man shook his head. Don't worry, this one's on me. Just tell your teacher to be more careful next time. Thanks, said Tom as we jumped out. You're the best taxi driver ever. The taxi man drove off laughing. I like London taxi drivers, said Tom, taking out another 2 of the Queen's biscuits and stuffing them in his mouth. They're better than the New York ones, I think. So do I said, watching as taxi disappeared out of sight. So we're on chapter 19 now, Year 5. The Queen's Palace. There are so many police, whispered Tom, as we walked down the big bright red road. Everywhere we looked, there were lots of orange cones and police in yellow jackets sitting on horses. I know, I whispered back. We didn't really need to whisper, but seeing so many police cars and officers was making us both nervous, especially if we weren't with a grown-up. Come on, I said, pulling Tom behind me. Let's go. We walked just as fast as we could, but the red road was long and it felt as if we had been walking for miles. Before we finally saw the fountain the taxi man had told us about. Look, said Tom, pointing up at the giant black gates of the palace. The spiked ends looked like they had been dipped in gold. And there were hundreds of people everywhere. It looked like this. A big picture here. Wow, look at that. Beautiful. There must be something happening, I said, looking around. I don't remember it being this busy when I came with Mum. The road ahead of us was filled with hundreds of people, lots of them with cameras around their necks. Some were talking and waving to the policemen. Others were climbing the garden fountain and sitting on its short walls, and yet more were leaning against the grey barriers that had been placed all along the sides of the pavements. There were people with large cameras resting on their shoulders, looking like they were getting ready to film something, and huge helicopters that looked like giant dragonflies humming in the sky above and making the air shake. Maybe someone special's coming to visit, suggested Tom. Let's go over there and find out, I said, pointing to the 2 biggest gates that lay in front of the palace. Each gate had a golden crest that was almost as big as me, stuck on them, and showed 2 lions dancing in front of some large spiky leaves. 2 police officers dressed all in black and with large stars in the middle of their helmets were sitting on horses in front of both the gates, silently observing the crowd. Are those the Queen's police? Asked Tom, pointing to them. Shall we go and ask them if we can see her? I shook my head. The Queen's extra special police are the ones in the red jackets and giant hats. They're the guards of the palace, so we have to ask one of them. Come on, I'll show you. Holding each other's hands, we zigzagged our way through the crowd until we found a tiny gap in one of the grey barriers. Squeezing through it, we ran across the big red road until we reached the barriers next to where the big black and golden gates were, trying to say excuse me and sorry as we pushed our way past the crowds. It was hard work, but after a few minutes we finally reached the palace gates. See, I said, pointing through the railings, those are the special guards. We need to get near to one of them. Tom pushed his face through 2 of the railings and stared at the police guards. You can tell right away they're more special than the normal police, because they were wearing bright red coats with extra shiny buttons, and they have coins on their chests and huge hairy hats that cover half their face. They also carry extra pointy guns and stand as still as statues inside special tiny black houses. Wow, I cannot wait to see what happens. And oh my goodness, the tension is building. Oh, with Year 5, will they see the Queen? Will they get to speak to her? Will they get to tell her what's going on with Amet? We shall find out soon. Over and out, Miss Davis.